Good evening, and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Mia Marquez. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we take a look back at stories from the Money Beat, from gentrification in one large Arizona city to a bakery getting a supersized opportunity right when it was needed most.
Rent increases in Tucson neighborhoods have left many residents displaced and victims of gentrification. One thing residents say is to blame: tax incentives offered to developers by the city that leave community members without affordable housing in the places they call home. In South Tucson, Roxanne Valenzuela remembers the diverse and united community she was raised in, giving back by volunteering at local soup kitchen Casa Maria.
We started noticing that the makeup of the neighborhood started changing, and it was becoming less affordable to find a house, rent a house, stay in the only community we knew to be our home.
Valenzuela and her family have lived in the area since '89, but trying to find affordable housing in the neighborhood they've always called home proved a challenge due to gentrification.
We also started noticing that the city was not investing in our community, in us, but instead giving developers incentives to build all these corporate businesses and ignoring us.
Developers in Tucson who take advantage of the government property lease excise tax, or GPLET, are free from paying property sales taxes for up to 8 years in hopes of revitalizing the city. However, to community members, the tax incentives spark fear of residents being displaced forcefully in the process.
That sales tax, if it was being collected, could be used for schools, could be used for highways, could be used for a lot of different things.
Visualizing gentrification is easy. Well-maintained housing, pavements, and increased mortgage costs contrast broken homes and trash roads that are now only remnants of a community that once stood strong.
We have been here for decades. We have been here for a long time. Our grandparents were here, our parents, and now we are here. And our kids. They are used to it. So if they take us out of here, where will we go?
Recent Zillow data shows that 3 different zip codes in Tucson have had some of the fastest growing rent prices in Arizona. Neighborhoods on the east side of Tucson have had an average increase of 32% in the past 5 years.
If you're poor and live in this neighborhood, you eventually give up and sell your house or quit renting because the rent becomes too expensive and allows the whole neighborhood to become gentrified.
When it comes to solutions, all the community members want is to be heard.
The focus just needs to be shifted to the most vulnerable communities, and the city and investors, developers should start thinking outside the box and maybe looking at a bottom-up approach instead of what it's always been, and that we just get the crumbs.
The city of Tucson currently has 24 GPLET agreements. According to city officials, over $155 million in total revenue impact from these developments will contribute to the overall economic growth of Tucson.
In Maricopa County, there are 55 food deserts. According to one report, 75% of them are in the city of Phoenix. Cronkite News reporter Andrea Villalobos takes us to the heart of one of those food deserts in South Phoenix, a place full of opportunities for Valley residents to learn more about healthy living.
The day starts by mixing dirt, hay, and water. Using their feet, they feel they harness a greater connection to Mother Earth.
We are energetic beings, spiritual beings, and we have a connection with each other. We've lost that essence.
Throughout the day's work, Blanca Barca with the organization Unlimited Potential teaches these farmers the importance of growing and eating organic food and connecting with their community.
Everyone gets together here and we all learn from one another. There are people here that are Asian, Black, Central American, and people from all over the world.
According to the city of Phoenix, there are 43 areas in the city with limited access to healthy and affordable food, what is known as a food desert. Spaces of Opportunity is a 19-acre farm that allows different individuals and organizations a place to grow crops.
On plots like these, farmers grow vegetables like lettuce, medicinal herbs, and prickly pear like these, which to members of this community have a special meaning.
It's part of our heritage. It's a plant that resists the climate changes we're experiencing. It resists droughts and it resists floods.
For this volunteer, it's important to see families become self-sufficient.
I'd love for them to come so they can learn more. We are essentially forgetting how to cultivate food, plants, grow crops, legumes, and fruit trees.
The farm is open to everyone, and the hope is to grow knowledge for generations. At the end of the class, participants give thanks to Mother Earth for providing them with the harvest gift.
If we return to our roots, to our ancestors, the human race will be better, which is what we need, peace.
In Phoenix, Andrea Villalobos, Cronkite News.
Governor Doug Ducey spoke about his priorities for the year, talking about K-12 education, trade with Mexico, and accelerating the economy. Cronkite News reporter Liz Flores was at the event and joins us with details.
Another item on the governor's agenda, conserving water. It's especially important this year as the state faces a reduction in its share of Colorado River water. This morning, Governor Doug Ducey met with President and CEO of Valley Partnership, Cheryl Lombard, at the Phoenix Country Club. They discussed the plan on investing monies from the State General's Fund. Governor Doug Ducey says he wants to ensure the state has water for the next 100 years.
There's going to be $1 billion put into an Arizona Water Authority that is moving through the legislature. There's a number of potential solutions around water. Desalination is one of them. The $1 billion will have flexibilities to address Arizona's long-term water needs, and it's a significant investment.
Governor Doug Ducey says that agriculture and farming are essential to the economy of Arizona. He also says this industry has diversified because of the drought and are making a good use of water. In the newsroom, Liz Flores, Cronkite News.
Passport is adding new shows and doubling the number of episodes for you to stream. For the first time ever, our most popular programs have been selected just for you.
But there's so much more.
Whether you like to travel,
wow,
feast,
and calories don't count.
Look back.
That is me.
Discover.
You know the whole story.
There's something for everyone.
Let's get to it right away.
Stream on any device with Passport on the PBS Video app.
With summer quickly approaching, the city still needs hundreds of lifeguards. Last summer, the city of Phoenix was unable to open all of their pools because of a shortage of workers. Reporter Molly Hudson went to one pool in Phoenix where the effort to get lifeguards trained was making a splash.
Being a lifeguard is a job that you look back on when you're an adult and say, that was the best job I ever had.
Aquatic supervisor for the city of Phoenix, Becky Hewlett, says having the city's 29 pools open for the summer ensures access to swim lessons and water safety education.
One of our missions in the city of Phoenix is to teach kids how to swim and reduce that drowning rate. And so that impact will be felt across the community.
The city wants to make sure as many people have access to pools close to home. So the Parks Department needs to get lifeguards trained and certified.
You have to get certified in a lifeguard certification, which includes the lifeguard skills portion of it, as well as CPR AED for the professional rescuer, which is basic life support. It also includes first aid and bloodborne pathogen certification.
In addition to the hourly pay of just over $14 an hour, the City of Phoenix announced a $2,500 incentive to reimburse people for the cost and time of lifeguard certification. This makes the hourly pay about $21 an hour.
So we are offering certification courses at a reduced rate of $20 for the class instead of $85.
Certification is a series of 5 classes. Candidates must pass the first class before moving on to the others. The initial class requires 300 yards of continuous swimming, treading water for 1 minute without using your hands, and retrieving a 10-pound brick from the bottom of a 12-foot pool.
You have the opportunity to learn how to work as a team, so teamwork and leadership and life safety skills, things that you'll carry on throughout your life.
Hewlett remembers her time as a lifeguard.
Once a lifeguard, always a lifeguard.
In Phoenix, Molly Hudson, Cronkite News.
You must be 15 years old to become a lifeguard. For more information and to apply, visit phoenix.gov/lifeguard.
Lawmakers in Arizona and solar advocates are calling on the U.S. Senate to pass investments to support solar energy growth in the U.S. and here in Arizona. Cronkite News reporter Autria Maneshny explains how these billions of dollars could make renewable energy more accessible in Arizona.
Tamra Muir and her husband have lived in Tucson for more than 14 years, and this year they decided to invest in rooftop solar.
Our decision to install solar was based on two things. First, of course, was a desire to do our part to slow climate change. We all know, as has been mentioned, living in the desert, about the heat and the lack of water.
It's costly to install solar. Muir says the federal and state tax credits influenced her decision to go solar.
We'll be able to break even on the cost of our solar in less than 10 years.
Some state lawmakers and solar advocates hope more people will follow in Muir's footsteps. That's why they gathered in Senator Mark Kelly's hometown of Tucson last week to urge him and Senator Kyrsten Sinema to support climate investments that were part of President Joe Biden's Build Back Better Act. The act passed the House but has stalled. These investments would be about $550 billion and would grow Arizona's renewable energy sector. For State Representative Daniel Hernandez, he sees that money helping low-income families get access to green energy.
In a state that has more sunshine than almost any other state in the country and almost any other place in the world, it is unconscionable that we are not doing more to invest in ensuring that there is rooftop solar for as many Arizonans as possible.
Investing in solar is also one solution the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change recommends in their recent report.
This is so important to Arizona to fight climate change. It literally means whether we get to stay here.
In Tucson, for example, the days above 105 degrees are increasing. Tamra Muir gets this. She says for her, solar will help cut her electricity costs while she does her part to help slow climate change.
We've already waited too long, and every year the extreme heat and weather cost us even more.
Muir says the federal tax credit to get solar is a good incentive, and if Congress can get behind climate investments, that could reduce the cost of installing rooftop solar. That's according to the White House. John Mittman with Arizona Solar Energy Industries Association says incentives are only part of the solution. He says what really needs to happen is workforce training to meet the growing demand for clean energy jobs that these investments would bring.
And workforce training takes a long time and a lot of investment. In the absence of the legislation, it's just going to really continue to hamstring us in the future.
For now, Muir is excited about what rooftop solar will mean. Tucson Electric Power will pay for any excess energy, and when the panels are paid off, she won't have an electric bill. That's money, Muir says, she plans to use to buy an electric vehicle. In Tucson, Autria Maneshny, Cronkite News.
It's the day baseball fans here in the Valley have been waiting for. Finally, spring training opening day. The season almost didn't happen after a 99-day deadlock between owners and players over a new collective bargaining agreement. But the teams took the field today, and Cronkite News reporter Nick Shesky is out in Sloan Field in Mesa with details on how businesses feel about the on-again, off-again season.
As you can see, there are many people here at Sloan Park excited about baseball finally being back. But the fans aren't the only ones buzzing. Many restaurants around the valley are breathing a sigh of relief as teams take the field. Nico Danielle Siegel opened her restaurant, Sante, last December with spring training in mind.
It's a big part of the valley. I mean, I think I lived here, I moved back here recently, and I lived here for 23 years of my life, and it was always like a huge revenue for the valley, so it's exceptional that it didn't totally close down.
Business owners have been sitting on the edge of their seats for the past few months, and now that there is finally a baseball season, Danielle Siegel expects fans to come out in full force.
I think there's going to be a lot of influx of business in the next week or so, especially since it's kind of just beginning. I think this is so short that people are going to be out and about immediately.
For some restaurants, it's not just the quantity of people coming to town for spring training that matters. For some, like Butters, Pancakes, and Cafe, the best part of spring training is seeing returning customers.
We're also very happy to get to see our friends that we've made over the years. This has been an ongoing thing for us for over a decade, and we've seen the same people coming and going for years now.
Sante is looking forward to even more patrons during its first spring training. And who knows, maybe even a few MLB players.
We've had some basketball players already in here, and it was funny. I was speaking to our team, and I was like, you know what? Our food and our menu is so aligned with baseball players and, the members of that kind of community. I think it's going to be really cool to see more and more people.
Today is day 1 of 21, so if you want to catch some of the baseball action, make sure you do so before April 6th. We'll be back here at Sloan Park later with a special Cronkite sports report for opening day. In Mesa, Nick Shesky, Cronkite News.
Super Bowl 57 in Arizona is just around the corner. The event is expected to bring thousands to our state, and for many businesses, it is a great opportunity to get their name out to a huge audience. The Arizona Super Bowl Host Committee has a program dedicated to supporting diverse business vendors at the Super Bowl. Cronkite News reporter Faith Abercrombie met with a local bakery owner who is making her game plan to provide sweets for thousands of football fans.
It was one email that opened up a door for business owner Stephanie Brimley's Infinity Sweets Bakery.
It's so many times where you think like, oh, I'm gonna have to close the doors, and then something miraculously happened.
After Brimley's sister submitted an application, Infinity Sweets was selected to be a vendor at Super Bowl 57.
Panic attack, that's what came to mind. Like, I'm happy and like I'm overwhelmed, and I'm like, did a happy dance outside of Michael's, and I was like, okay, now that wore off, that's going to be a lot of work.
The Business Connect program is a partnership between the NFL and the Arizona Super Bowl Host Committee. The goal is to promote diversity and inclusivity in businesses related to NFL events. In order to apply, the business must be 51% owned by a minority, woman, LGBTQ+, or veteran.
To give local businesses a chance that's like on the brink of, hey, not surviving or surviving.
Brimley mixes, frosts, and slices completely by herself. She is the only baker in the building.
It's literally a one-man show.
And while she's confident in her creations,
I just have a love for just like baking and thinking outside the box and just decorating and let my creative side take over.
She's excited about workshops and networking that come with the Business Connect program because she's ready to bring her baking skills to the big time. In Phoenix, Faith Abercrombie, Cronkite News.
Stephanie Brimley will attend her first meeting with the Arizona Super Bowl Host Committee on Wednesday.
That's it for this special edition of Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Break It Down is next. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Break It Down is brought to you in part by Mayo Clinic and viewers like you.
Hi, I'm Manuel Avila Santiago. I'm Associate Dean for the College of Integrated Science and Arts, Associate Professor of Communication and Culture, and the host of Break It Down. While Encanto hit theaters and Disney Plus a few months ago, we're still having deep conversations about it. It raises questions about authenticity, comparison with others animated films like Coco, and even debates around why we don't talk about Bruno, the popular song from the movie, overtook Frozen's super hit, Let It Go. How did that happen, right? People are asking that question. But whether you like it or not, whether you're pleased or not, we can all agree that Encanto is a multi-layered text with a lot of interesting potential readings, right? And my colleague, Orquídea Morales, is the perfect person to chat about Encanto. So let's break it down. The first question is, Orquídea, in a nutshell, what is the premise of Encanto and why has it generated so much interest?
So the general idea of Encanto, I think, is very similar to other Pixar Disney movies. It's an outcast child that doesn't fit with her family. Her name's Mirabel, so she doesn't have magical powers. Everyone else in her family does. And it's her trying to figure out how she can be of value to her family without magic and trying to keep the family together while also figuring out why they are the way they are.
Film critics, most of them love it. Scholars, some of them love it, some others not so much. So I would like to know a little bit, what are some of the most prominent criticism of the film?
The big criticisms have been that it flattens Latinx and Latin American identities. So the movie takes place in Colombia, and people talk about it as if it were a Latinx movie or a Latinx representation, which it isn't, right? It speaks to a lot of us that are first gen or immigrants or things like that, but it's not about us. So it really is about the complexity of representation when it comes to Latin American and Latinx communities. I think that's one of the big critiques, and rightfully so. But overall, I think I've seen mixed reviews, as in people say, these are some of the problems, but we love it, or it made us cry, or the music is great. So I think Disney knows how to pull at your heartstrings so well that it's hard to hate a Disney movie straight out.
I know, I can agree with you too. And there's been a lot of podcasts and discussion online about this. And some of the questions are around authenticity, right? Those authenticity questions keep popping up. Is it reasonable for us to expect such a thing from a multinational corporation such as Disney? What do you think?
The thing is, culture changes constantly. So authenticity is important, but it's also tricky. So I think we should expect them to do their research, right? Which it seems like they've done. We should expect them to be thorough. We should expect them to be respectful and not perpetuate negative stereotypes. But at the same time, we shouldn't put the hat of authenticity on Disney, in my opinion, right? Like they are appealing to a broad audience. So they want things to be vague, and they want you to be able to identify even if you're not Colombian, right? So it's a lot to ask of one company, but it's also important to require that they do some research, right? We don't want, what is it, the Three Caballeros again?
I know, right? So one of the things that really intrigued me about the film is I'm not from Colombia, I'm from Puerto Rico, but there was a lot of moments in which I feel a really strong connection, specifically through food, right? Those scenes in the kitchen and making, dinners and preparing, that preparation process there's a lot of connection there. So it really appealed to me. That's one of the areas that I think is trying, making arepas, and all of us most of us grew up with some type of arepa in our houses, right? Yeah. In the table, like more even for breakfast or dinner or something like that. So I thought that the element of food was really interesting. And another thing that caught my attention was that you wrote on Twitter that you wanted to read Encanto through a horror lens, right? Yeah. I was in shock by that, and my mind began making those connections. And of course, there is a commentary on generational trauma, on pain, obviously on death. But another obvious link is the esoteric element of the film. And for those of you who are not familiar, Encanto in Spanish is often used to describe a brujeria or witchcraft. But I'm curious about, how do you see this horror narrative plays out in the film?
So for me, a horror lens just means that we're critical about the film and the way that it touches us, right? And I don't think Encanto is a horror film, but there's horror moments or horror bursts in it that make us think and that make us feel. These are horrific moments, and they're great to pick out in movies like this because they let us talk to children about these things, right? So we can talk about pain, loss, belonging, and horror things. Life has a lot of horrific moments, unfortunately. I mean, we're living through a pandemic. What's more horrific than that? So we need to have those tools to talk to children, to talk to each other about them. And films that are not within the genre allow us to do that with these small moments of horror.
Very interesting. And of course, we have the character of Bruno, as you mentioned, lurking throughout the film, right? And he's there. But I have to be honest, what horrifies me the most is that, according to media critics, animated movies have been the most successful in telling stories about Latino and Latinas. That horrifies me. And I use Latino and Latinas, between quotes, because of course these films, as you mentioned, they were mislabeled as Latinas or Latino stories, when in reality, a film like Coco, right? Specifically a Mexican tradition of Dia de los Muertos. That's what Coco tackles. In the case of Encanto, the Madrigal family in Colombia. And you and I are both educators and Latino media scholars. How we can push for more industrial and narrative changes in the industry?
That's such a difficult question because I think it's important to celebrate the wins. The Coco and Encanto are both wins in some ways when it comes to representation. And there's overlap, right? We bring the trauma from these countries to the US, and then we have like the racial class ideologies of the US implanted over those. So they are very complex stories to tell, and there's power in that. So we need the quantity and the quality together to get those stories. And a big part of that is movies like this open doors for people and creators, right? Lin-Manuel Miranda, plays a big role in Encanto. He's talking about doing a Broadway musical of it, right? So that's great. We need more creators. We need other creators. It can't be the Lin-Manuel Miranda show all the time.
I read somewhere, I think on Twitter, I think it was a retweet that you made, that he's planning on doing a film about the Puerto Rican diaspora, which could be a Latinx story. I mean, if we think about it, that would be interesting. But obviously there's people already rejecting the idea of it. So, I mean, you know, it's all about audiences and audiences' reaction in terms of the consumption and circulation of these texts. And I'm really, really encouraging our audiences to let us know what they think about Encanto without giving a lot of spoilers, right? We got to be careful with those who haven't watched it. And we encourage to watch it because I think it's a really interesting text. So thank you very much for joining me today, Orquídea. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And I agree. Go see Encanto. Take your handkerchief because you're going to cry.
Thank you.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.